So the first conversation I had with any party leadership that the first time that I gave any sense that it was an untruth was on the 7th of August, and it was a short phone call, which then was followed by a meeting at Pritam Singh's house with the chair, Sylvia Lim, and vice chair, Faisal Manap.
So, 7th of August, there was a short phone call only with Pritam Singh.
Yes.
When was this meeting?
It was a few days after. I'm sorry, but I really can't think of the date. But it was, I think it was the following Wednesday or Thursday.
So that would be what, 3-4 days later?
Yes.
Roughly.
Yes.
And you said at whose house again?
Pritam Singh's house.
Okay. And at this occasion, Ms. Lim and Mr. Manap were present.
Yes.
And did you put it in clear terms to them as well that the statement you had made was false?
Yes.
Could they have misunderstood?
No, they could not.
What was their reaction to this?
It was incredible disappointment. There was a lot of anger. But I think there was some compassion there as well. The reaction was that if I were not to be pressed, then the best thing to do would be to retain the narrative that I began in August.
Let me understand the last statement. You said if you were not going to be pressed, and then you retain the narrative that you started in August.
Yes.
It means if you can get away with it, we don't have to clarify the lie, correct?
I think in the simplest terms, yes, you are correct.
And so the Workers' Party leadership who was present there, their initial reaction to being told that there was a lie or falsehood said in Parliament was to try and duck the issue if possible. And if it doesn't come up, then the truth need not be told eventually, correct?
I have to say, though, that Pritam Singh's initial response was that I should go to the Committee of Privileges. But after discussions and me explaining the circumstances that led me to the information in the first place, that changed.
So the upshot of the meeting a few days after the 7th of August was that the Workers' Party leadership decided that there will be no need to clarify the position. They'll keep the lie in place, since if you're not pressed, there's no need to clarify the truth, correct?
Correct.
Can you give us an account of this meeting in summary, beginning from the time when Ms. Khan arrived? And at that time, who was there? How did the meeting proceed? Right. What was discussed? Who spoke? Who raised what? And how was it responded to?
Right. As far as my memory serves me, Ms. Khan comes to my place. I think the time is 11, but my text messages will confirm. I think my daughters are playing, running around, and so we move to the dining table. We sit there, and then Raeesah says, "Can you ask your girls to go up?" Then they go up, and then whether that happened before, I asked Raeesah, "You have something to share with us?" And Sylvia, Faisal, myself, we were there. She was there. And then she gets very emotional. She starts crying straight away. And the first thing she says, the first thing I remember at least that she said was, when I was 18 years old, I was. And then, of course, we're shocked to hear this. We're very shocked to hear this. And then she explains that it's because of that condition, that episode that she faced. It was very traumatic for her. And because it was very traumatic for her, she told the untruth in Parliament because she feels strongly about issues of sexual assault, and arising from there, she did what she did in Parliament. That was the gist of it. There was also another that part of the meeting wasn't very long. I think we felt sympathetic. We felt sympathy to her. I remember distinctly asking her, so who else knows about this that occurred when you were 18 years old? And she said, my husband knows, Yudish knows, Paying knows, and my therapist knows. And when she said my therapist knows, I was relieved somewhat, because at least there's somebody there who she can turn to and seek advice and the appropriate counsel from with
Okay.
regard to what she is facing. And the conversation actually was very short, and I told her, I said, you'll have to speak to your parents about this. And she said, okay. And then it was very, I mean, she was just crying, and you know, that's where we left it.
So, arising from this meeting, in your mind, there was no doubt that she had told you, Ms. Lim and Mr. Faisal, that she lied in Parliament.
Yes.
And you must have appreciated that one reason she told this to you and Mr. Faisal and Ms. Lim was because she sought guidance and counsel from the three of you.
She didn't put it that way. Because you have to remember, on the 7th, this was literally forced out of her over the phone call.
Yes, but in this context, she's coming forward. She's made a confession about her lie in Parliament. It's a serious matter, which I think you'll agree. In this context, wouldn't it be reasonable to assume, for her to assume, that the three most senior members of the Workers' Party would give her guidance?
I believe we did, and my guidance to her was to speak to your parents about it, because in my mind, this would have to be corrected in Parliament. But before we can even
Did you tell her that?
Sorry?
Did you tell her that?
No, not on that day.
Why
on
not?
That day. I think at that point, given her condition, given her state, it was more important for me to tell her, look, speak to your parents. And when she left my place, I did tell her, we'll have to deal with this issue, but speak to your parents first. I told her that.
So, Mr. Faisal, did he say anything to her about the lie? And I'm focused on the lie.
I'm really not sure specifically for Mr. Faisal, but I think he had some questions to ask her about therapy, and because he's a counsellor, and I think he may have asked her some questions, but I don't recall exactly what those
But did
questions were.
Mr. Faisal discuss with her what to do with the lie and how to clarify it?
Not that I can recall.
Right. Did Ms. Lim do so?
Not that I can recall as well. Because generally the flavor of that meeting was, there was a lot of pity for her.
Okay. So your recollection was that there was no substantive discussion
Yes,
on what to
that's
do,
right.
and there
That's
was
correct.
certainly no instruction or directive by you to her to clarify the lie.
No.
Right.
No, there was not.
And in fact, Mr. Faisal told us yesterday that after Ms. Khan confessed about the lie in Parliament, the focus was on her well-being and her experience as a sexual assault victim, and that there were no other discussions on the lie in Parliament.
That would be correct, because we were more focused on her well-being and given the state that she was in.
Right.